Echoes of the past. Mara returned to her childhood home after her mother's passing. She had avoided this place for years, haunted by memories she couldn't shake. But with no other family, she inherited the old, crumbling house. The walls held secrets, and shadows seemed to linger in the corners, as if waiting. The first night was quiet, too quiet. Mara lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, when she heard it. A faint humming coming from the hallway. It was a familiar melody, a lullaby her mother used to sing, but the sound was distorted, echoing as if from another world. She brushed it off as her mind playing tricks, worn down by grief and exhaustion. But the next night, the humming returned, louder and closer. She got up, cautiously stepping into the dimly lit hallway, following the sound to the end of the corridor. The door to her mother's room was slightly ajar, though she could have sworn she'd closed it. She hesitated, heart pounding, before stepping inside. The room was just as she remembered, frozen in time. The old rocking chair by the window creaked as if it had just been sat in. The air was thick, heavy with a mix of dust and something else, something familiar yet unsettling. The melody stopped, leaving a ringing silence that made her shiver. She closed the door and hurried back to her room, heart racing. Over the next few days, the house seemed to come alive. Footsteps echoed in the halls, whispers floated through the rooms, and shadows moved in the periphery of her vision. But worst of all was the lullaby, growing louder and clearer each night, until it felt like someone was singing just outside her door. One night, unable to bear the tension, she called out, "Who's there?" Her voice trembled, swallowed by the silence. In response, she heard a whisper, soft, almost pleading, calling her name. The voice was achingly familiar. She ran to the living room, where the family photo album sat on the coffee table. She flipped through the pages, memories flooding back. Her mother's face, smiling, kind. A woman who had loved her but had struggled, battling her own demons in silence. Mara had always felt a sadness in her mother, a darkness that seemed to follow her everywhere. As she sat with the album, the air grew cold, and a figure appeared in the doorway, a shadowy outline, but unmistakably her mother. The figure looked at her with sorrowful eyes, as if burdened by something unsaid. Mara froze, her heart pounding, unable to look away. "Mom?" she whispered. The figure nodded slowly, then turned, beckoning Mara to follow. Against her better judgment, she did, moving through the dark, silent house, past the memories that weighed heavily on her heart. The figure led her to the basement, a place she had always avoided. She hesitated at the top of the stairs, but the shadow waited patiently, silently urging her forward. With each step down, the air grew colder, and Mara's breath came in ragged gasps. The basement was pitch dark, but as she reached the bottom, an old light bulb flickered on, casting a dim glow over the forgotten space. In the center of the room stood a small chest. Mara recognized it immediately. It was her mother's, something she had always been forbidden to open. Her hands shook as she reached out, lifting the lid. Inside were letters, hundreds of them, each one addressed to Mara. She sat on the cold floor, reading through the letters, and the truth unfolded in fragments. Her mother had battled profound sorrow, secrets buried so deeply they had consumed her. The letters spoke of guilt, of a shadow that had haunted her, a burden she couldn't escape. Tears streamed down Mara's face as she read the final letter, one her mother had written just days before her death. It was a goodbye, an apology, a confession of a pain that she had tried to hide but had always feared would reach her daughter. And as Mara read the last line, the lullaby filled the room, soft and gentle, a bittersweet memory. The shadow watched from the corner, no longer restless, as if finally at peace. The figure faded, leaving Mara alone with the letters, the final echoes of a life that had been hidden in shadows. She sat there until dawn, the weight of her mother's grief settling in her heart, a bond that transcended death. As the first light of morning seeped into the basement, Mara whispered, "I forgive you." The air grew lighter, and a warmth spread through the room, as if the house itself had been holding its breath, finally able to let go.